I've opened the assignment page and I'm looking down here and I'm going to be creating two images. I can use AI for this. I can draw it myself. I can try to find an image. If I wanted to try to find an image, I could use a photograph. There are all kinds of ways that I can create these two images. For this demonstration, I'm going to use AI. I'm going to use ChatGPT. So it tells me that I am going to look down this list. We have broad categories, and then I'm going to find one of these that I like. So whatever speaks to me, I have the proverb, the theme. I have a summary of what that means. I have a rhetorical example, which would be something like an article, an essay, a legal case. And I have a fun narrative passage. I'm going to create two images, one for this and one for this. I scrolled down here and I found one, which I will of course be deleting in a minute because I don't want you to use my example. You don't want to use my example. So I'm down here and this is what I found. The pen is mightier than the sword. And it says, justice can be served peacefully. I have two references. This first one is an actual case that happened. And I'm going to create an image for this that shows the theme, the pen is mightier than the sword. I'm going to take this little narrative passage and I'm going to put that into ChatGPT and I'm going to ask it to create an image. Then I'm going to ask it to copy this and paste it. I'm going to ask it to create the image. Let me take you through that process because part of it was really easy and part of it was like, ugh, this is so frustrating. First, for this legal case, when I put the instructions into ChatGPT, it came up with this image. First, this doesn't show the pen is mightier than the sword. I didn't need the words to be in there. And so now we're back to the drawing board and I give it more instructions. This time it shows the scene of the parents and the child with the judge, but it doesn't show me anything about the pen is mightier than the sword. And if I didn't know what this case was about, I certainly wouldn't know it from this image. Back to the drawing board. I asked ChatGPT to make it happier, and it comes up with this. And this wasn't really a happy case. This little girl had been denied permission to go to this school. And so we see school, but I don't see pen is mightier than the sword. If I didn't know the situation, I would think that the parents were taking the little girl to her first day of school, which they are, but not until after this court case. Then I looked up the entire court case and I put that into ChatGPT and I said, show me something that shows the pen is mightier than the sword. And you notice that there's no pen here. And again, we know the people's names, but we don't know anything more than that. And so finally, I popped it in there and just said, show me this. And the pen was mightier than the sword. And this is the best I could come up with. So it does show that there's a family. There's obviously some conflict that required a judge. There's the pen and there's the school. So the reader at least knows that this has something to do with a school, probably has something to do with this child, and something happened with the judge where instead of violence, the pen was mightier than the sword. And so this isn't the exciting, wonderful, fabulous thing that I would think of, but I want to let you know that something like this is okay because it does show the elements of the theme and the proverb that we used. But as disappointing as that was, only because I had grand ideas in mind, but for the narrative, that little passage for the pen is mightier than the sword was this. A young girl scribbled a single poem on a broken wall, and by morning the whole city was singing. No blade could cut as deeply as her words stitched hope into every heart. Stories build bridges that battles never could. Okay, so in just 2 tries on ChatGPT, it came up with this. Oh my gosh, isn't that darling? And so I didn't press my luck with trying to make this capitalized because that's the title. This was for a book cover. But look at this darling image that it created. I'm so happy with that because it's hit or miss sometimes with these AI things. You probably are so much better at communicating with AI resources than I am. But that's the example. Now let me show you how I put all this together in my assignment to turn in. Now there's a whole tutorial that explains this if you wanted more details, but I don't know that you do. You don't need any of this stuff, but we have my name, course date, and of course I can use any title, image, font that I like. And then I have my title, my picture. And then I have just this little, it's all the content. Show for that narrative. Who would be seeing this? Who would this story be for that you used the little passage from that grid, the chart, for? Next, copy and paste that passage. I want to see what passage you used. Then the theme, which is that same theme, the pennies, bodies, and the sword. Whichever one you selected will be your theme. And then just a couple of sentences about the illustration and why I went the way that I went with it and took the story in the direction I wanted to take it. Because remember, you just get a little passage and you can take that passage and run with it as long as we stay with that theme. The point is showing the theme. Then we have the image. It's fine. It works. And I have the subject matter, which was a legal case in this instance, and the passage that I used. This is where I found the full case. And the theme, the same theme, pen is mightier than the sword. And then about my illustration, and just a very simple explanation for that. As soon as I have completed all this stuff, and I make sure that all these words are in Times New Roman 12 font. And again, this about your illustration, in your own words. This is not graded for composition or grammar. I don't want ChatGPT to tell me what selections you made. I want you to tell me what selections you made. And then we simply come up here and we're going to save this as a PDF. And of course, yours will have the title that you've given it with your name on there, hopefully. And then save as. And we're going to click PDF. We're going to save this as a PDF. Then we'll go over to the assignment. I'm going to show you how to do that too real quick. I'm going back over to the assignment page. I'm going to click Start the Assignment. And staying right here in this column, I don't need to go anywhere else, just right here. I'm going to upload that PDF that I saved. And when I click that, it's going to show it right there. If I messed it up, I can click X and I can go back and add whatever I needed to add. And then I'm going to click Submit the Assignment.